I can't help myself. So I always react to the talks I hear before me. So I want to provoke some conversations. We're going to have a discussion about stacks. By the way, I love and respect all of your disciplines. I've been in most of them, software engineer, kind of designer, lawyer, what have you. So even though I say some hard things about the different disciplines, I do love and respect you all. We'll come back to this simple but wrong, complex but right. I love Dave Gray's UX, Uber alles. And tooling really is vital. I don't have much to say about tooling in my talk because I only have 45 minutes, but maybe in the breakouts. One of the biggest challenges we have at IBM is going from the really fun, raw, post-it note level, right, where great decisions happen, to capturing it in tools. So anybody who can help us with that, we're all ears. But let's get into the real talk, because again, I only have 45 minutes. You can ignore the title. I don't know what I was thinking when I made it up. I guess it convinced Milan to have me come and speak. What I'm really here to talk about are these three things. I'm going to take you through the next 45 minutes a little bit about myself, about the journey I've been on, because I think it kind of represents the journey of this cross-disciplinary approach that Milan and his folks have been on too. That's where we kind of met. And that provides background for a lot of the critique I'm going to give. I've been on both sides, the more engineering side, the more designery side. So, take that with the appropriate grains of salt. Then I'm going to talk about why user experience is so important to IBM today. I work at IBM. I mostly do workshops with teams there. My official title is Portfolio Design Lead, but what I really do is run workshops with product teams to help them merge these different perspectives. But why is it that IBM is now paying so much attention to user experience? And believe me, it's not just because we feel guilty about all the crappy software that we delivered over the past 30 years. And I can say we now, I've been there 2.5 years, so a lot of that was before my time. And last but not least, we're going to understand a little bit about how to avoid boiling the architectural ocean with maybe too many perspectives at once. I do agree, back to the stack, we do need to take account of a lot of different perspectives, but if you don't focus, if you don't really zero in on a couple of key things each time, a couple of key aspects, you'll get lost in the woods. I've seen it, over the past 20 years. So with that as our goals, as we call them hills, let's get into it. So I only have one slide about my meandering history here. I even left off, the origin story, which goes way back. I originally was a software engineer in AI back in the 80s, right? So I've been a software engineer. I love software engineers. I love architecture. I love complexity, but it has its place. I also left off that I'm an intellectual property litigator, right? I used to defend patents and copyrights and trademarks and so on. Now I'm on the other side. It's all open source, open content, intellectual property evil. Not quite, but certainly when you've seen the dark side, it kind of changes your perspective. Let's fast forward then to 2004. So after all that checkered history, I became an analyst, an IT analyst, first at a smaller company called Metagroup. Then we got acquired by Gartner, right? So I came to IBM from Gartner. 18 years analyzing middleware, enterprise architecture, business architecture, information architecture, BPM, business process management, you name it, I've probably covered it. So that informs a lot of my perspective here today. So around 2004, let's pick up the story here on the slide, I was a huge fan of SOA, right? Service-oriented architecture, and the most complex form of it. I loved SOAP and WSDL and the whole WS Star web services stack. Why? Because it was so powerful. It was super powerful. And yeah, it was complicated, but that was a good thing because it had to be complicated to really let you do powerful things. Fast forward to about 2007, and I saw the light, right? I stumbled across this thing called REST, right? Representational state transfer, which was actually kicking the butt of WS Death Star, as it came to be known then, right? This hugely complex set of standards was defeated by this incredibly simple, people would say lightweight, almost toy set of standards, protocols, what have you, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me why. So that's what really began my journey to discover design thinking. I needed to understand why simple and easy beat complex and difficult. In fact, I just noticed on my laptop, I still have the sticker. This is Roy Fielding, the guy who is the original author of REST. You know, he's my hero. So that's really what made me see the light, that simple and easy and fun to use could beat out more complex, robust stuff. So that's where I started looking for answers, and I stumbled across design thinking. You might say, how could you have missed it, Nick? Well, IT missed it for a long, long time. I used to do, show of hands at all my conferences. How many people here have heard design thinking? And no hands went up, right? No hands went up with architects. This is back, again, 2007 to 2010. Very different landscape here. So 2010, I actually got permission inside of Gartner to launch a design thinking line of research. Of course, we didn't call it design thinking because we always like to make up new buzzwords. We called it hybrid thinking. Hybrid thinking. But if you look up any of my old research notes from back in those days, it's all about design thinking. And we had a framework and so on. And I did that for a couple of years, and it went over roughly like a lead balloon, right? Our audience, which is IT professionals, CIOs, enterprise architects, and so on, they'd read the research, they came to a couple of conferences we gave, and they just didn't get it. A handful in the back would always say, yeah, this is great, you get it. Why isn't everybody else doing this? But the vast majority of our clients just weren't interested in design thinking. So the powers that be, Gartner said, Nick, you had your shot, go back to doing good old BPM, EA. And I said, nah, I can't do that, I gotta follow my heart. As you can see from my checkered history, that usually means changing careers at some point. So in 2013, I joined IBM. I found out they were doing design thinking. We had a mutual friend and the general manager running it, who I'll show you in just one second, and I made the switch. And here we are 3 years later, Intersection16, and I'm gonna relay to you some of the lessons learned applying now design thinking. I finally got my dream come true, what it's been like applying design thinking in an IT setting. So hang on. Here's the gentleman who inspired and hired me, Phil Gilbert, our general manager of IBM Design. This is his mission statement. It still is our mission statement 3 years later. The mission of IBM Design is to create a sustainable culture of design at IBM. Now, implicit in that message are two things. One, at IBM means at scale. We are humongous. 350,000 roughly employees, another 100 to 150,000 consultants, contractors, so it's gargantuan. We've hired now probably over 1,000 designers. It's a drop in the bucket, right? We have the largest design staff of any company on the planet, I believe. If you've got a bigger one, let me know, and I'll retract that statement. Sustainable is the other one. Transformation initiatives wash over IBM year in, year out. I've been there 3 years, and I can't tell you how many transformation initiatives I've seen come and go. So to really make design sustainable at IBM is a bold statement by Phil. Now, the one thing I would change about Phil's statement there is the word create, because actually we're recreating a design culture at IBM. We're coming up on the 50th anniversary of this amazing memo from Thomas Watson Jr., the legendary CEO of IBM back in the mainframe days and so on, who really transformed the company into a computer company. And this is, a corporate-wide memo on paper, probably mimeographed and sent out, through corporate mail internally. It's the origin of that great slogan you've probably heard: good design is good business, right? So even back in the 1960s, Thomas J. Watson was saying, imaginative use of design helps sell our products. So that's where we came with things like the Selectric, right? And all of our great buildings and architecture. So we're recreating that spirit at IBM. But why? Let's get to that first question. Why is it important to have great design at IBM again? It's because the days of monolithic software, developed over years and installed on-premise and kind of left alone, never to be upgraded, those days are behind us, right? The reality of the SaaS online, digital world means we can't just set it and forget it anymore. It also means the days of shelfware are over. Like a lot of major enterprise companies, the business model is almost a health club kind of model. You sell them the subscription and you hope they never go to the gym, right? They never use it. Because you sold them this 5-year, $50 million enterprise license agreement, and if they use the software or not, you really don't care. And that was an amazing business for the past 20 years at major software companies like IBM. Well, with SaaS, if they don't use it, you don't get paid, right? It literally is a subscription model. So in this day and age, more use equals more dollars, right? They've got to actually use it. And of course, better experience means more use. We all have that piece of software or that SaaS service that's so hard to use, we avoid it like the plague, but we got to use it because we're employees at a big company or even a small company. Expense reporting is a good one, right? Some kind of expense reporting app. And you kind of try to minimize how much time you spend in there because it's just so painful. So horrible. Well, that means IBM or whoever gets paid less. So increasing your use of a piece of software, that's going to bring in more revenue, which is why now better experience equals more dollars. It's that simple. And everybody from the CEO, Ginny Rometty, on down has seen that slide and nods their heads. Yep, we're good. We need better experience. So that's why we have the permission now to do what we call IBM Design Thinking. This is like our little mini definition here. I'm going to walk you through some of the key aspects of IBM Design Thinking in this second part of the talk. And probably the most important thing to my thinking on this slide is the notion of understanding people's needs as the starting point. And on the other end, delivering an outcome. One of the things that I've noticed in a lot of my travels with architects, with engineers, with lots of different folks is we create a lot of artifacts. We create a lot of designs, a lot of schematics, a lot of proposals about our business model, a lot of paper, right? Back when it was on paper. But that's not the outcome, right? That's the means to the end. And until you deliver an outcome, none of it really matters. So I'm going to share with you at the end a couple of the outcomes we've seen from IBM Design Thinking in our 3 years. And of course, speed and scale are a big part of it. So this is kind of the iconic representation. So we have our stack too. Ours is only, it's only 2 rows with 3 things in it, right? Now, I wish it was 3 by 3. You'll see everything in IBM Design is 3s, except for the number of rows here. 3 principles, 3 keys. The loop there in the middle is just so important a principle, they blew it up and made it its own row. But it's really the same thing as the one up in the upper right. So 3 principles, 3 keys. I'm going to walk you through those real quick. But only highlight in each one what I think is the most important one of the 3. So here are the 3 principles. Should be no surprise to this audience if you've been following along, what Milan and his group has been doing around enterprise design. You need to focus on user outcomes, specifically user experiences, multidisciplinary teams, right? That Venn diagram that Milan showed, and of course this notion of restless innovation. This is our attempt to have our own version of the agile cycle, if you will, and you'll see that in just a second. I'm only going to spend a fraction of my time on the multidisciplinary teams and the restless innovation. I can spend most of my time on user outcomes because that's, I think, the hard part in all this. So here's our Venn diagram, inspired by the same concept. There's designers up there doing design thinking, right? There's the business folks doing their businessy thing. And yes, lean startup is a big trend, a big transformation inside of IBM. So we really like lean startup thinking. For a behemoth company, it's kind of intriguing. We use the business model canvas. It's an official deliverable. The lean business model canvas, I know there's 2 of them out there. We use the lean business model canvas as a key artifact. And then, of course, there's the engineers with their DevOps processes. So this isn't just about taking mindsets and getting them integrated. It's disciplines with their own frameworks and their own methodologies, intersecting all that. We put offering management in the center on this slide. I've changed what's in the center to please different audiences. So this one is just to please the offering managers. And by the way, decoding vocabulary aside here, IBM, again, like Gartner, to be different, we don't call it product management. I don't know why. We call it offering management because we have services and products. So when you see offering management, just think product management if you're from that world. So that's our multidisciplinary approach. What that really means in reality is we will not do a workshop. We will not work with a team unless all the disciplines are present in that meeting, in that workshop. If there's a no-show, we don't do the workshop, right? And at a minimum, it's these three disciplines. We oftentimes insist that marketing be there, sales be there, if it's more front-end, discover, try, and buy. We want those disciplines there in the decision-making process, not told about it afterwards. That's really what that slide means. Here's our loop. Nothing amazing here. Again, IDEO has their 4 stages. I think it's, understand, explore, prototype, and evaluate. We used to use that one. Now we're down to 3 because we like 3. It's observe, reflect, and make. And you do it over and over again. It's an infinite loop. And at any scale and size. We even say in a single workshop, doing one exercise is a turn through the loop of observing what's going on in the workshop, reflecting with Post-its up on the wall, and then making. We make something. Making a decision is making. Making a prototype, a wireframe, whatever. Obviously, the end point is making that real outcome, that real product in the market, but everything along the way is a form of make. So we loop through that over and over and over again. Nothing really surprising there. All right, let's get to the really important part, user outcomes. And this is spread. People across IBM have seen this slide. Make users your North Star. Make user experience the end-all, be-all. So we can have I'm going to provoke a conversation. I do believe that, like Dave Gray, UX is everything. Everything is in service of UX, and hopefully I'll convince a few of you who are skeptical of that position by the end of my talk. It doesn't mean all these other frameworks aren't absolutely necessary to get into that user experience, but the end result needs to be a great user experience. So let's talk about a great user experience. What is it, right? Well, it's not this. This is not a great user experience. This is a bicycle. I'm sure it's a great bicycle. One of our mountain biking designers, I think, picked it out of somewhere. I'm sure it's got great, carbon frame, and the pedals, I'm sure, are world class, and so on. But it's a bicycle. It's a product. It's not an experience, right? This is an experience. Right? Mountain biking with the bike is the experience. That's what we're delivering. And we can't forget that, ever. And yet it's so easy because you're a product manager, and you think about the product, and you think about how can I make the pedals better, Well, why make them better? Will it really make a difference in mountain biking? If not, don't do it. Now, you can make them cheaper so we can manufacture it more cheap. I'm not saying that. But, putting on extra frills just because you think it's cool, if it doesn't add to the mountain biking experience, don't do it. And furthermore, it's not just one experience. If you focus too much on the product, you forget that same product or variations of it could be used for vastly different experiences. So bicycling, runs the gamut. There's mountain biking, of course, and there's commuting. There's teaching your kid to ride a bike. There's riding with your kids. All of these might require a very different kind of bicycle. So if you don't keep coming back to the user experience, what the job to be done is and how it feels, you will get lost. You will design a bicycle that does all of this kind of sort of well. That's what IBM excelled at, I think, over the years. Like, oh yeah, anybody can use this for anything because we built in every possible variation. And what you usually get is a product that's kind of blah. This bicycle that isn't a great mountain bike, it's not a great commuting bike, it's not a great anything, but it kind of sort of does everything. And that's what we're trying to change at IBM. So this is kind of how we encapsulate it for offering managers. We're trying to change their mindset. We're actually turning it on its head, in a way. IBM offering managers lead the design and delivery of great user experiences. I wish I could have made it period, full stop, but to explain the inversion, we added via products and services. The products and services that IBM sells are the means to the end, not the end in itself. Right? The experience is the end. Right? And again, provoking conversations so we can have a great conversation about why experiences are front and center, not the products themselves. And one reason is if people don't like using your product or service, whatever your end in mind was, making more money, being more productive in your enterprise, it's not going to happen. It's a pipe dream. People aren't cogs. You can't just treat them functionally. You've got to treat them as an end in themselves. I forgot to mention, I was a philosophy major as an undergraduate, so I can't help thinking of Kant here, right? You must treat people as ends, not means. And that's really what this statement's about. All right, so if that's our goal, to design great user experiences, I'm an engineer. I'm a tangible, concrete kind of person, or I'm an offering manager. How do I design one? What does a design for great user experience look like? Because I don't see one. I want to know how to do it. And that's one of the biggest learnings I got at IBM. All this fluffy talk about empathy and empathy maps and experience and so on went over the heads of engineers and offering managers because they just couldn't see a tangible design. And they like to see, physical, visual designs. Once you show them one, then they kind of get it. So I set out on a journey to, define, in my mind, what a great user design artifact looked like. Well, it's not this, right? The classic layer cake architectural stack. This is usually like the third slide in most enterprise software decks. You do a little bit about the market and how much opportunity there is, then you show this. This is what my product does, right? It does all these functional things. It's wonderful and blah, blah, blah. And of course, buried in just one of the boxes, so we get this thing to work, right there, UX and user. Somehow magic happens and a wonderful user experience is inside that little box. Of course, it's not. It usually sucks, but that's where the placeholder is. So this is not a user experience design, nor is this. All right, this is even worse. This is the classic Zachman Framework about how anything, including enterprises, can be designed. And again, where's user experience in here? I was refreshed. I forgot that people are front and center. But the word experience, completely missing. People are a cog, literally, in this diagram, right? They're just a component in the machine. That's why this thing is evil. Sorry, John. I love you. So here's the aha I had, coming from BPM, business process management, and so on, and flow charts and workflows. I finally realized that a user experience design, what you write down when you've captured user experience, is just a workflow, right? The sequence of steps. You've all seen it if you've done any kind of, process management, design. You have all your steps and tasks and so on, but it's with empathy. You add that key dimension, that key aspect of empathy. So here's a concrete example. This is from our Bluemix group. Bluemix is IBM's PaaS, Platform as a Service. It's a cloud-based offering. I'll show you a screenshot at the end. And this is the Bluemix first-time use journey, right? So the first time you're logging into Bluemix, getting started, developing an app in the cloud with Bluemix, this is what it feels like. And there are the steps. This is intended to be an eye chart. This thing actually goes on for like another 5 slides off to the side, right? It's humongous. So a lot of steps there. But what I really wanted to highlight wasn't the steps. That's pretty basic. You can see there, login for first time, create an app. It's really about that empathy or emotional curve you see there. Smiling face, unhappy, neutral, and so on. That's what needs to be diagrammed. That's what I tell engineers. We need to diagram this. And we can't do it out of our own heads. We have to go watch users using our product and see how they react. And of course, ask them questions and so on. How did that feel? How was that good? Was it kind of complicated? What have you, right? And I don't mean that everything has to be happy face, right? That's nirvana. But you got to have enough ups in the right places to really make people want to use your product. That's what I mean by a workflow with empathy. And people get it. Once you show them this, they're kind of like, that's not so hard, Actually, it is really hard to do well, but they kind of get what it means. That's what I'm designing, right? Now, it starts out looking like this in our workshops, right? Really messy with lots of Post-its. There are the major steps. And in every workshop we do, it's always those 3 rows, those 3 swim lanes. What are people doing, thinking, and feeling? Again, nothing new here. Journey maps and experience maps and so on have been around for a long time. We're just borrowing them. We just make sure they're front and center. Doing, thinking, feeling. And guess what? The hardest part for engineers and offering managers and non-designers is filling out that bottom row. And we really hold their feet to the fire. They don't get to leave the wall until they've really filled that in. And then it starts to sink in. Now, one other aspect of this, which is super important, is what we call our universal 6 experiences. Because when you look at the problem with a lot of products and services out there, a lot of offerings today, is while the productive everyday use experience is okay, everything else about getting that into your hands and being useful and productive with it is terrible, right? So this isn't a life cycle. People at IBM Design hate it when I call it a life cycle, but it's really a life cycle. From beginning to end, this is the product experience. And what we tell offering managers is, you may not want to start with improving the productive everyday use of your product, which is right there. Maybe improve the discover, try, buy, right? Maybe, everyday use is okay, or maybe it's too hard to change because, legacy or what have you. Then redesign your discover, try, buy. So let me go through real quickly all 6 experiences. So discover, try, buy, that's pretty obvious. Getting started. That can be everything from, installing a new app on your cell phone, right, which is pretty simple, to a 6-month consulting-led engagement to deploy a new piece of software. I was talking to Neil last night about deploying, major piece of software for risk management. Sometimes you never get past getting started because it's so complicated to get things installed and up and running and all the data transferred, everybody gives up. So making getting started easier can be a huge focus for product teams. Then there's everyday use. Manage and upgrade. IBM has a lot of problems with this. We've got companies that stay back 5 or 6 versions because upgrading is just so painful, right? So we can improve that experience. Leverage and extend is really just playing well with others. A lot of API issues in there. How do I integrate this piece of software with others? By the way, I know this talk is very software and product intensive. You can translate any one of these into services or processes. How does my process integrate with other processes, right? Or services, not just standalone. And last but not least, support. Everything needs support, whether it's a product or service, process, what have you. What's the support experience like? So really, when you're doing offering management right, or I would say if you're doing, enterprise architecture right or service design right, what you're really going to do is constantly improve the 6 experiences. Get that emotional curve to be better at the right places in every one of these 6 experiences. How do I find out about this product or service, this new approach inside the enterprise? How do I get started with it? How do I use it every day? And so on. That's pretty much it. Now notice, I spend most of my time when I work with product teams on just the discover, try, buy, and productive use, but I've done virtually every one of these workshops inside of IBM. And when I say workshop, what I mean is this kind of stuff. Post-it notes flying up at the wall, doing lots of different practices, all of which are pretty much standard run-of-the-mill design thinking, design practices. We haven't invented anything new here. We've just put them together in kind of a toolkit. In fact, speaking of toolkits, this is our toolkit. This is our field guide. Has every one of the major practices documented, 2 pages each. How do you generate big idea vignettes, that kind of stuff. In fact, I got a couple here with me. I'll make a little door prize. If I get a really amazing question at the end, somebody gets a free copy of the field guide. But don't worry, if you don't win it, I put up a URL at the end. You can get a PDF version online as well. All right, so that's our principles, right? And the key one is designing better user experiences. And how do you do that? You do workflows with empathy. Pretty basic. Let's switch to the keys real quick, because this is where I'm going to talk about that third item in our reason for being together today, and how to focus, how to make sure you don't boil the ocean when you do all this. Because one thing you can take away from this is, I'll just add one more practice into everything else I do. Now I'll do one more artifact, a workflow with empathy, and I'll throw it on top of the pile of other artifacts that I'm doing. No, that's not the message here. It's like less, do less, get more. So let's talk about the three keys. Again, I'm going to focus bulk of my remaining time on on hills. I'll just talk track playbacks and sponsored use. I don't even have any slides for those. So what's a playback? At IBM, a playback is a storytelling session. Literally, storytelling. It's not like a usual meeting to see progress on a product. We have those too, where we show functionality and so on. This is where the whole team comes together, including your sponsor users, real, live, breathing users, and you actually walk them through the user experience, wherever it is in being developed. So the first time through, it's all wireframes, maybe even just storyboards, right? And then as you flesh it out, it's more and more real code. Maybe it's a front-end mock-up by your front-end developers. There's no real code behind it, but now it's working screen-like code. And by the end, by the final playback, it is 100% working code if it's software. Or in the case of a process, it's showing the actual process, methodology, whatever it may be. But every step along the way, you go through and say, here's Bob. Bob is an accountant. Bob needs to get this done. He then sits down, you tell it that way. Because, again, you don't want to lose sight of the user experience. And if you have a meeting where you just talk about the features that you've built to make Bob's job easier, you can very easily forget that it's about mountain biking, not the bike, right? So that's playbacks. Sponsor users, again, no real magic here. Before we let teams go off and do their 3 hills, right? I'll talk about the 3 hills in just a second. There must be at least one sponsor user for each hill. That's why I call it sponsor users. You can have hundreds of users that you do user research on. That's great. But one user has to say, wow, I want that hill. I will pay for that hill. When's it ready? They have to be excited about it, passionate about it. And if you can't find a sponsor user, then you don't get to go forward, right? You don't get to pass go. You stop and you redo your hills. So let's talk about hills. Hills are the way we align on intent. And that's a huge issue at IBM. Some of our products, have teams of hundreds of engineers, a dozen designers or more, 15 offering managers for the different aspects of the product. I mean, these are gargantuan groups. I think they're too big. I think part of our problem is they're unnecessarily big, but that's above my pay grade. So what we do try to say is for these large teams, you have to have a radically simple message about what they're focused on for the next release. Otherwise, everybody goes off in different directions. I've seen it happen. People get lost on what the real point of this release is, and they go off and do little fun side projects, what have you. So getting people aligned is what hills are all about. What a hill is a statement of intent, right? Very simply stated, it's literally 20 words or less. There's a lot of backup material behind it, but that 20 words or less, and that's a rough approximation, is the key to that alignment. It's so simple, anybody can get it, and guess what? You only get 3. You only get 3. So my advice to all of you, who need to work in large frameworks and, deal with 50 different aspects, you got to do it. You got to do what you got to do. But I would advise you to do it 3 at a time. Maybe 4, maybe 2. But, you don't try to do all 50 first pass through. And I think that's probably common sense, but sometimes people forget. I have watched enterprise architects fill out every row of the Zachman diagram before they even get going. It took them 3 years to do it. By the time they got ready to do something, it was obsolete. So 3 at a time. 3 hills, 1 foundation. I won't go into what the foundation is. It's technical stuff. 3 hills. 3 things that are going to really impact the user experience every release. And this is super hard at IBM. They want to do 4 or 5 or 20 or 30. No, you get 3. Now, what does a hill look like? This is what it looks like as we're doing it with Post-it notes in a workshop. Any good hill has 3 components in the sentence. the who, the what, and the wow. Who is this for? Who's the user? Is it a commuting bicyclist or is it a mountain biker? What is the enablement? A better bike of some sort, better pedals, whatever. And what's the wow? What is it that's going to make this user go, this is going to make my job so much easier. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When can I have it? And of course, the wow is always the hardest part. We spend most of our time working on it. Here's one that kind of written out with color coding for the three aspects. Bobby, an internal millennial engineer, so you see how specific this can be? Not just any engineer, it's a millennial, and they're internal. They build products for just the inside the enterprise. They don't deliver products outside. Can see, prioritize, and understand tasks assigned to him in a single place without having to install anything. So in a single place, without having to install anything. Now, I don't know this domain super well, but I'll take it on faith that this was enough of a wow for that team to go out and not build it yet, to go out and find some sponsor users that would say, wow, I'm Bobby, I'm an internal millennial engineer, and this is fantastic. By the way, you don't get to ask buyers unless you're doing a discover, try, buy. But if you're doing productive use, you have to go talk to the actual engineer, not the buyer. Right? And eventually you have to show him what you came up with, or her. One last thing about focus, too. So 3 hills, it really helps focus. But we do find out that some teams kind of try to jam everything into hills. Some of our hills are more like mountain ranges, like the Himalayas. And so what we tell them is, you can't do everything at once. We have this thing we call the experience roadmap. You've all seen product roadmaps, right? Where feature function by quarter is kind of laid out. We don't do it that way. We talk about what experience you deliver this quarter, next quarter, quarter after that, or whatever time horizon you use. And we use this metaphor of wedding cake versus cupcake, but the birthday cake is kind of the middle ground. IBM engineers and offering managers love to build wedding cakes. The most complex, costly, expensive kind of stuff you can possibly imagine. It'll do everything, but it's complicated and hard and so on. So we said, look, don't deliver the wedding cake first time. If you were starting a business in this day and age, you wouldn't go straight into the wedding cake business. You would try things out as a smart entrepreneur by starting a cupcake business. Just deliver a little cupcake, right? See how that goes. Get a little experience in retailing and what it takes to deliver food products. And then grow that cupcake business up into the wedding cake business. That's the metaphor we use. There's pros and cons. We've got different metaphors getting this across. But we tell offering managers is, you must deliver into the market the first time out, not a minimum viable product. We hate that term. MVP, terrible term. Because viable is kind of like edible, right? Yeah, I can choke this food down, but I don't want food that I can barely choke down. I want delightful food. So we use the expression MDE at IBM, minimum delightful experience. And getting them to kind of hone down their big 3 hills into the 20% that would deliver 80% of that delightful experience, that's hard too, but it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, we're back to boiling the ocean. All right? So that's pretty much it. You've seen why we believe that experience is the most important thing now for our products at IBM. I've talked about how do you design, what does it look like when you design user experience, and how to relentlessly focus on keeping it as simple as humanly possible. So what have the outcomes been out of all this work? Right? Because it's all about the outcomes, not the work in progress. These are 3 products out of dozens upon dozens that we often highlight as having had the IBM Design Makeover. Or in these cases, these are all new products, so it's actually what the look and feel is for new products. I know they're just screenshots. I would prefer to show you the workflows. I did show you the workflow with empathy for Bluemix, which is the little rocket ship one. But for the rest, you'll just have to take my word for it. They're great user experiences behind this. So there's Bluemix, a radically different feeling development environment, much more point and click, ease of setup, getting to your first project, your first app projects super easily. By the way, you can try out all of these. Discover, try, and buy is pretty good too. You can do a free trial out of the box, which used to be impossible for IBM. You'd have to have a salesperson show up and show it to you. So that's Bluemix. Then we have Watson Analytics, which is our data scientist in a box kind of product. You can play with, what do you say, explore, predict, assemble, and refine data online up in the cloud. Super easy to use tools with templates and examples and so on. Again, coming out of IBM Design Work. And then last but not least, our email service application. Behind the scenes, it's still notes engines up in the cloud, but we've completely thrown out the notes interface. And for those of you who know notes, that was a low bar to exceed. It was pretty easy to win. But I will say, I think this is a pretty damn good interface up here. It's got some amazing approaches built into it. Very, again, people-centric. It's all not conversations about the people you're talking with, and they're front and center. So these are 3 outcomes in the past 3 years, which I think is pretty exciting that we've gotten this much done in this short amount of time. So, to leave a little bit of time for questions, probably about 3 minutes or so, let me just give you my call to action here at the end. So if I could sum up this whole talk in 2 calls to action. It's always about what am I going to stop doing and what I'm going to start doing, right, in my world. Stop trying to architect better enterprises. Don't do it. Instead, start trying to design better enterprise experiences. It's that simple. You'll end up with a better enterprise. I guarantee it. But the way you start is by saying, what are the experiences of all the people who make up an enterprise? And if you begin improving those one by one by one, or I'll give you 3 by 3 by 3, right? Then you'll end up with a better enterprise. But if you start thinking about the enterprise as, Milan said, a machine, a thing with parts that needs to be fixed, and I'm designing the enterprise, not the experiences, you'll never get there. I worked with enterprise architects for 18 years. Most of them never got there because they didn't care enough about user experience. And hopefully, with this audience in this room, you already kind of get that, and I've just shown you some little tips and tricks that IBM is using to deliver on that result. So thank you very much.